Introduction. In a world that constantly tests your patience, confidence, and self-worth, emotional control is the ultimate form of power. Control your emotions. Nothing can break you draws from the timeless wisdom of Stoic philosophy to reveal how true strength is not found in dominance over others, but in mastery over yourself. The Stoics understood that external events are beyond our control, yet our reactions can define our character, resilience, and peace of mind. When emotions run unchecked, they make us reactive, predictable, and vulnerable. When they are disciplined, they become a source of calm authority and unshakable inner stability. This lesson explores how to remain composed in moments of chaos, rejection, provocation, and loss. Instead of suppressing emotions, Stoicism teaches you to understand them, question them, and choose reason over impulse. By learning to detach from outcomes, accept discomfort, and focus only on what lies within your control, you develop a mental fortress that no insult, setback, or betrayal can penetrate. When you stop allowing emotions to rule your decisions, you stop giving others power over your state of mind. This is not emotional coldness. It is emotional intelligence at its highest form. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by anger, anxiety, or disappointment, this philosophy offers a practical path to emotional freedom. By applying Stoic principles in daily life, you can remain calm under pressure, confident in uncertainty, and grounded no matter what happens around you. When you control your emotions, nothing can break you, because your strength comes from within, not from circumstances. Mastering emotions is a foundation of inner strength and self-respect. Mastering emotions is a foundation of inner strength and self-respect because it determines whether you live as a reactor to life or as its steady observer. Most people believe strength is loud, forceful, or dominant. But true strength is quiet. It is the ability to feel deeply without being controlled by what you feel. Emotions themselves are not the enemy. They are signals, messengers that reveal what matters to you. The danger begins when emotions dictate your words, decisions, and identity. A person who cannot regulate anger becomes a slave to provocation. A person who cannot manage fear abandons opportunities before they even begin. Self-respect grows the moment you realize that your emotions are yours to experience, not commands you must obey. When you pause before reacting, you reclaim authority over your inner world, and that authority becomes visible to others. People instinctively respect those who remain composed under pressure because composure signals confidence, clarity, and self-trust. Mastery does not mean suppression. It means awareness. You acknowledge the emotion, understand its cause, and choose a response aligned with your values rather than your impulses. This practice builds an unshakable inner core. When insults no longer provoke you, you stop seeking validation. When setbacks no longer crush you, you stop fearing failure. Emotional mastery also sharpens judgment, allowing you to act from wisdom instead of regret. Over time, this discipline creates consistency between who you are alone and who you are in the world. That consistency is self-respect in its purest form. You begin to trust yourself because you know you will not betray your principles in moments of stress or desire. Inner strength is not built in comfort but in the repeated choice to remain calm when chaos invites reaction. Each time you choose patience over anger, restraint over impulse, and understanding over ego, you reinforce your dignity. Life will continue to test you with disappointment, criticism, and uncertainty, but these challenges become training rather than threats. The emotionally mastered individual does not avoid pain. They transform it into insight. They understand that nothing external has the power to diminish their worth unless they grant it permission. In this way, mastering emotions becomes an act of self-leadership. It is a quiet promise you make to yourself that no matter the circumstance, you will respond with intention, honor, and strength. External events are neutral. Your judgment gives them power. External events are neutral. It is your judgment that gives them power over you. This lesson sits at the core of Stoic philosophy and offers a profound shift in how we experience life. Every day, things happen outside our control. Words are spoken, opportunities are missed, plans fall apart, and people behave in unexpected ways. These events arrive without meaning attached to them. They are neither good nor bad on their own. They simply are. What transforms them into sources of suffering or strength is the story we tell ourselves about them. When someone criticizes you, the criticism itself is just sound and intention. It becomes painful only when you judge it as an attack on your worth. When you lose something valuable, the loss is a fact, But the despair arises from judging that loss as unbearable or unjust. Stoicism teaches that the mind, not the event, is a true battlefield. Understanding this principle restores personal power. If events themselves were responsible for our emotions, we would be helpless, constantly at the mercy of circumstances and other people. But when you recognize that your judgment creates your emotional reactions, you reclaim control. You begin to see a pause between what happens and how you respond. In that pause lies freedom. You can choose a different interpretation, one that serves your growth instead of your suffering. A setback can be judged as failure or as feedback. Silence from someone can be judged as rejection or as neutral space. The same event, judged differently, produces an entirely different inner world. This does not mean denying pain or pretending everything is pleasant. Stoicism is not emotional suppression. It is emotional clarity. You still feel disappointment, anger, or sadness, but you no longer let those emotions rule you blindly. You examine them. You ask, what judgment am I making right now? Often, you will discover hidden beliefs. I must always be respected. Things should go my way. Or this shouldn't have happened. By challenging these judgments, the emotional charge weakens. The event remains, but its grip on you loosens. With practice, this mindset builds resilience. When you stop labeling events as disasters, you stop being easily broken. Life becomes more stable, not because it is easier, but because your inner response is stronger. You no longer waste energy fighting reality. Instead, you accept what happens and focus on what is within your control, your thoughts, your actions, and your character. This is a quiet strength Stoics aim for, a calm mind that cannot be shaken by external chaos. Ultimately, realizing that external events are neutral teaches you responsibility for your inner world. You stop blaming people, luck, or circumstances for how you feel. You understand that peace is not found by controlling life, but by mastering judgment. When you remove false meaning from events, they lose their power to harm you, and you gain the power to remain steady, clear, and unbreakable no matter what happens around you. Freed on emotional reactions make you predictable and vulnerable. Emotional reactions make you predictable and vulnerable because they hand control of your inner state to external events and other people. The moment you react impulsively, through anger, defensiveness, desperation, or excitement, you reveal your emotional triggers. Anyone observing can learn what provokes you, what unsettles you, and how to influence your behavior. This is not a matter of cruelty or manipulation alone. It is a fundamental principle of human psychology. Predictability arises when your responses are automatic rather than chosen. If praise makes you reckless, criticism makes you collapse, or silence makes you anxious, your emotional pattern becomes a map others can follow. In this state, you are no longer acting from clarity or intention, but from reflex. Stoic philosophy warns against this not because emotions are evil, but because unchecked reactions erode self-mastery. When emotions surge without restraint, they distort perception. Anger narrows your thinking, fear exaggerates threats, and desire blinds you to consequences. This distortion leads you to say too much, act too fast, and commit to decisions you later regret. Vulnerability is created not by feeling emotions, but by being ruled by them. A person who reacts immediately is easy to provoke, easy to mislead, and easy to exhaust. In contrast, emotional discipline introduces uncertainty to others while restoring certainty within yourself. When you pause instead of reacting, you interrupt the cycle that others expect. Silence after provocation, calm after insult, and patience under pressure disrupt psychological leverage. This pause gives you space to observe rather than be absorbed, to choose rather than obey impulse. Over time, this habit reshapes your identity. You become someone whose behavior cannot be easily predicted or manipulated because it is guided by values rather than moods. Emotional control also protects your long-term interests. Many losses in life, reputational, relational, financial, occur not because of external enemies, but because of internal collapse in a critical moment. One outburst, one desperate message, one emotional decision can undo months or years of progress. By mastering your reactions, you preserve optionality and dignity. You stop broadcasting your insecurities and start projecting stability. This does not mean suppressing emotions or becoming cold. It means acknowledging feelings without surrendering to them. You feel anger without becoming aggressive, disappointment without becoming bitter, attraction without becoming needy. This inner restraint is quiet power. People sense it and adjust their behavior accordingly. They are less likely to test you, manipulate you, or disrespect your boundaries because they cannot read you easily. Ultimately, emotional discipline is a form of freedom. When nothing outside of you can force an emotional reaction, nothing truly controls you. You move through life with deliberation instead of reactivity, strength instead of fragility, and awareness instead of impulse. In a world driven by emotional chaos, the person who remains composed holds the advantage. For calmness under pressure signals confidence and authority. Calmness under pressure is one of the clearest signals of true confidence and quiet authority because it shows mastery not only over circumstances, but over the self. When pressure rises, most people become reactive. Their emotions take control, their words rush out, and their decisions become driven by fear or ego. The calm individual stands apart. They do not deny the seriousness of the situation, nor do they pretend that stress does not exist. Instead, they accept reality as it is and respond with intention. This ability to remain composed communicates strength without the need for dominance. Others instinctively trust someone who is steady when things become uncertain, because calmness suggests experience, foresight, and emotional discipline. In moments of chaos, people look for stability, and the person who maintains inner stillness naturally becomes the center of gravity. Calmness also protects clarity. Under pressure, the mind tends to narrow, focusing only on threats and worst-case outcomes. A calm state keeps perception wide, allowing one to see options that panic would hide. This is why leaders who stay composed make better decisions. They are not hijacked by adrenaline or the urge to prove something. Their authority feels earned rather than forced, because it comes from presence, not volume. Silence, when grounded in calmness, often carries more weight than loud words spoken in haste. Furthermore, calmness under pressure signals self-trust. It shows that you believe you can handle whatever unfolds, even if the outcome is uncertain. This self-trust is contagious. It reassures others and reduces collective anxiety. In social and professional situations, a calm response during conflict or criticism disarms tension. Instead of escalating the situation, it subtly shifts power in your favor because you are not reacting, you are choosing. From a Stoic perspective, this is the ultimate form of control, focusing on what is within your power, your thoughts, judgments, and actions, while releasing attachment to what is not. Calmness does not mean passivity or weakness. It means acting from reason rather than impulse. A calm person can still be decisive, firm, and assertive, but their energy is measured, not chaotic. Over time, this consistency builds reputation. People begin to associate your presence with stability and reliability. In high-pressure moments, your calm becomes your signature. It tells the world that you are not easily shaken, that external events do not dictate your inner state. This is why calmness is often mistaken for power. It is power refined and disciplined. When you remain calm under pressure, you demonstrate that you are not controlled by circumstances, and that quiet command earns respect without demanding it. Detachment protects your peace and sharpens decision-making. Detachment protects your peace and sharpens decision-making because it creates emotional distance between what happens to you and how you respond to it. When you are overly attached to outcomes, people, approval, or expectations, you hand your inner stability to forces outside your control. Every reaction becomes personal, every setback feels like a threat, and your judgment gets clouded by emotion. Detachment, as taught in Stoic philosophy, does not mean indifference or coldness. It means clarity. It means caring without clinging, engaging without being enslaved by results. When you detach, you stop reacting impulsively and start responding deliberately. You observe situations as they are, not as your fears or desires distort them. This mental space is where peace begins, because your emotions no longer spike with every external change. Instead of being dragged by anger, anxiety, or desperation, you remain steady, composed, and self-directed. This inner stability directly sharpens your decision-making. Emotional attachment narrows perception. It makes you defend bad choices simply because you're invested in them, chase validation even when it costs your dignity, and tolerate situations that drain you because letting go feels uncomfortable. Detachment breaks this cycle. By loosening emotional grip, you regain the ability to evaluate facts objectively. You can ask, Is this beneficial, rather than how do I feel about this right now? Calm reasoning replaces emotional urgency. In moments of pressure, detachment allows you to pause instead of panic, to listen instead of react, and to choose a long-term advantage over short-term relief. This is why the most effective leaders, strategists, and thinkers appear calm under stress. They are not emotionally entangled with every outcome. Detachment also protects your peace by reducing unnecessary suffering. Much of human distress comes not from events themselves, but from the stories we attach to them, expectations unmet, imagined losses, fear of rejection, and obsession over what we cannot control. When you detach, you stop arguing with reality. You accept that people will act according to their nature, outcomes will fluctuate, and life will remain unpredictable. This acceptance doesn't weaken you, it strengthens you. You conserve emotional energy, which can then be directed toward purposeful action rather than rumination. Peace becomes your default state, not something that depends on others behaving a certain way. Over time, detachment builds quiet confidence. You no longer need to prove yourself, chase approval, or force outcomes. You trust your values, your preparation, and your ability to adapt. Decisions become cleaner, faster, and more aligned with who you are, because they are not contaminated by fear or attachment. In this state, you move through life with composure and precision. Detachment does not remove meaning from life, it removes chaos. By protecting your peace, it grants you clarity. By granting you clarity, it sharpens every decision you make. 6. Accept hardship as a test designed to strengthen character. Accepting hardship as a test designed to strengthen character is one of the most powerful mental shifts a person can make. Life does not distribute difficulty randomly or maliciously. Rather, hardship arrives as a natural part of growth, shaping resilience, discipline, and inner strength. When challenges appear, the instinct is often to resist, complain, or ask why life feels unfair. Yet, this reaction weakens the mind. A stronger approach is to view every obstacle as training, much like resistance placed on a muscle to make it stronger. Without resistance, muscles atrophy. Without hardship, character remains fragile. Struggle forces clarity. It reveals what truly matters, exposes weaknesses that comfort hides, and demands that you rise beyond who you were yesterday. A person who has never endured hardship often collapses at the first sign of pressure, while one who has faced adversity learns to remain calm, focused, and grounded even when circumstances are harsh. Hardship teaches patience by slowing you down when you want immediate results, humility by reminding you that you are not in control of everything, and courage by requiring action despite fear. It also strips away illusions, false confidence, superficial relationships, and ego-driven desires, leaving behind what is essential and real. When you accept hardship instead of fighting it, you reclaim power. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this here to teach me?" This shift transforms suffering into purpose. Pain no longer feels meaningless. It becomes a message. Every setback trains emotional control, forcing you to respond rather than react. Every loss sharpens gratitude for what remains. Every delay builds endurance and long-term thinking. Even failure becomes valuable, not as proof of inadequacy, but as feedback guiding improvement. Great strength is not forged in ease, but in endurance. History, philosophy, and lived experience all point to the same truth. Those who grow the most are not spared from hardship. They are shaped by it. When life tests you, it is not asking you break. It is asking you to evolve. By accepting hardship as necessary training, you develop unshakable inner stability. External events lose their power to destroy your peace because your strength comes from within, not from comfort or approval. Over time, this mindset builds quiet confidence, the knowledge that no matter what comes, you can endure, adapt, and overcome. Hardship, then, is not the enemy, it is a forge. Those who endure the fire emerge stronger, wiser, and more disciplined, carrying a character that cannot be easily shaken by the chaos of the world. 7. Anger weakens clarity. Reason restores balance. Anger weakens clarity. Reason restores balance. This lesson sits at the center of emotional mastery and Stoic wisdom. When anger takes hold, it narrows perception, distorts judgment, and pushes the mind into reaction rather than understanding. In moments of anger, the brain prioritizes defense and dominance, not truth. Words are spoken without foresight, Actions are taken without strategy, and decisions are made to satisfy emotion rather than outcome. What feels like strength in anger is often just a loss of control disguised as power. Clarity cannot survive in a storm of emotion because anger feeds on immediacy. It demands instant expression and rejects patience. Reason, on the other hand, thrives in space and stillness. It asks us to pause, observe, and question before acting. Where anger says respond now, reason says understand first. This pause is not weakness. It is a discipline that separates those who are ruled by emotion from those who rule themselves. Reason restores balance by reintroducing proportion. It weighs consequences, distinguishes what is within our control from what is not, and redirects energy toward what truly matters. Stoic philosophy teaches that external events do not disturb us. Our judgment about them do. Anger arises when we label situations as personal attacks or injustices that must be corrected immediately. Reason challenges this narrative by asking whether the offense truly harms our character or merely our ego. Most often, it is the ego that is wounded, not our values. When reason is applied, anger loses its fuel. We begin to see that reacting emotionally gives power to others, while responding rationally preserves our autonomy. Balance is not emotional numbness. It is emotional alignment. Reason does not deny feelings. It governs them. It allows us to feel anger without becoming it. This distinction is crucial because suppressed anger turns inward and uncontrolled anger explodes outward. Reason channels emotion into constructive action or deliberate restraint. Over time, this practice sharpens clarity. We start to recognize triggers earlier, interpret situations more accurately, and choose responses that serve long-term goals rather than short-term relief. In relationships, anger damages trust, while reason invites understanding. In leadership, anger erodes authority, while reason commands respect. In personal growth, anger keeps us trapped in cycles of blame, while reason pushes us toward responsibility. Every time we choose reason over rage, we strengthen the mind capacity for calm judgment. This is not about being passive or tolerant of wrongdoing. It is about choosing effectiveness over impulsiveness. Anger feels powerful, but it is fleeting and costly. Reason feels quiet, but it is enduring and strategic. True strength lies in the ability to remain composed when provoked, clear when challenged, and balanced when tested. When anger fades, its consequences often remain, but when reason guides action, its benefits compound. In mastering this lesson, we reclaim clarity, protect inner stability, and move through life with deliberate strength rather than emotional chaos. Criticism, whether constructive or harsh, carries weight only to the extent that we allow it to affect us. One of the fundamental lessons in personal growth is understanding that criticism is not inherently harmful. Rather, the harm comes from internalizing it and letting it dictate our self-perception or self-worth. When someone criticizes you, it often reflects more about their perspective, biases, or expectations than about your true value or abilities. The moment you take their words as a definitive judgment of who you are, you give away your power, letting external opinions shape your internal reality. The Stoic approach teaches that our mind is the only domain truly under our control. Therefore, learning to separate external commentary from internal truth is essential. Criticism can serve as a tool if viewed through a discerning lens, used to identify areas of improvement, to learn, or to refine a skill, but it loses all power when it becomes a source of emotional turmoil or self-doubt. Many people fall into the trap of ruminating over negative feedback, replaying it in their minds, and allowing it to erode confidence. This internalization magnifies the impact of criticism far beyond its intended purpose. In reality, most criticism is fleeting and often superficial. It rarely reflects a full picture of our capabilities, efforts, or intentions. By refusing to internalize criticism, you maintain emotional sovereignty, the ability to remain grounded, composed, and resilient regardless of others' judgments. Learning to respond rather than react is another crucial aspect. When faced with critique, pause and assess whether there is any constructive element to consider. If so, use it thoughtfully. If not, let it pass without letting it settle in your mind. This requires cultivating a strong sense of self-awareness and self-worth that does not rely on validation from others. Additionally, recognizing that criticism often reveals more about the critic than about you can neutralize its emotional charge. People may project their insecurities, frustrations, or envy onto you, and mistaking these projections for truth is what causes unnecessary pain. By creating a mental boundary between the critique and your self-identity, you shield yourself from harm while still remaining open to genuine opportunity for growth. Ultimately, criticism only becomes a weapon when you hand it the keys to your mind. Mastery over this concept is a hallmark of emotional intelligence and personal resilience. It allows you to pursue your goals, express yourself authentically, and engage with the world without fear of judgment. True strength lies not in avoiding criticism, but in facing it with clarity, detachment, and discernment, knowing that your inner peace and self-respect remain entirely under your control. The moment you internalize this lesson, criticism loses its sting, and your capacity to grow and thrive becomes boundless. 9. Self-discipline creates emotional independence. Self-discipline is one of the most powerful tools for achieving emotional independence, and its impact reaches far beyond simple routines or productivity. At its core, self-discipline is the ability to regulate your thoughts, actions, and reactions, even in the face of discomfort, temptation, or external pressure. When you cultivate this skill, you begin to realize that your emotional state is not dictated by circumstances, other people, or fleeting impulses, but by your own conscious choices. Emotional independence means that you are not reactive or dependent on validation, approval, or the behavior of others to feel stable, confident, or content. Instead, you maintain a consistent inner equilibrium, grounded in self-awareness and self-control. This does not mean suppressing emotions or denying yourself feelings. Rather, it means creating a space where emotions are acknowledged and managed constructively rather than allowed to control your behavior. A person who lacks self-discipline often finds themselves swept away by anger, anxiety, frustration, or impulsive desires. They may overreact to criticism, chase approval, or become dependent on external sources of happiness, which makes their emotional state fragile and volatile. By practicing self-discipline, however, you train your mind to pause before responding, to evaluate situations rationally, and to act according to long-term goals rather than short-term impulses. This deliberate control over your actions and reactions naturally extends to your emotional life. For instance, when you face disappointment, a disciplined person resists the urge to lash out or dwell in negativity. Instead, they process the situation thoughtfully, learning from it while maintaining inner calm. Similarly, when confronted with temptation or provocation, self-discipline allows you to choose actions aligned with your values rather than giving in to impulsive reactions that may later bring regret. Over time, this consistent practice builds emotional resilience and independence, as your happiness, confidence, and peace of mind become rooted in yourself rather than external factors. You start to recognize that the opinions, behavior, or moods of others cannot dictate how you feel, because your emotional state is governed by your own principles and choices. In essence, self-discipline creates a form of emotional immunity, the ability to remain centered, composed, and purposeful regardless of external chaos or internal turbulence. People who master this skill often exude a quiet strength, not because they are detached or indifferent, but because they have trained themselves to respond with clarity, wisdom, and balance. In life, emotional independence is one of the most valuable forms of freedom, and self-discipline is a foundation that makes it possible. By committing to small acts of self-control daily, whether in thought, behavior, or habit, you gradually transform your relationship with yourself, achieving a level of emotional mastery that allows you to live with intention, confidence, and serenity.